Hello everybody, today I want to talk about Nexus of Fate, the bubble that I'm seeing in the economy around it, specifically in the context of irrational exuberance, an economic concept that I find really interesting. So let's get right into things. Nexus of Fate is a special promotional buy-a-box promo that you can get when you're buying M19. It doesn't appear in regular packs, so it's a special card in that respect. Now, promo cards like this have existed before and has been a problem. Casually focused ones such as the Fire Song and Sun Speaker that came from Dominaria, that was fine. Reasonable price, nothing went wrong. So what caused Nexus of Fate to become the most controversial card in the multiverse? Well, it showed up in a competitive deck, which then very quickly led to a price spike in the card, which caused a bit of a panic in the community. Now, if you want an assessment of sort of what's wrong with the design of the card and some dissection of the promotion, I think a good person to read is Patrick Sullivan. He wrote an article on SCG. This is linked in the description. Really wonderfully written article, and I think that he really hits on especially what's sort of wrong with the card itself, why the card itself is a problematic card to use in a promotion like this. But this doesn't quite explain what's going on with the price per se, because if you then look at WotC's response to this community outrage, they said there's more of Nexus of Fate available than any mythic in M19. So why are the prices so high? Yes, it's showing up in one competitive deck, and it is a 4 in that deck, but it's showing up basically nowhere else. This is not like it's a staple card that's showing up in every blue deck. So what really happened there to cause this price spike to be so high? First off, I want to say I don't really think that hoarding, people who are maybe gathering all these together, or resellers that are having some strange behavior would be causing this. This is, I think, a result of some other things. Maybe this is a bit of a factor, but probably not the main one. I think a big reason of why we saw this huge price spike and this huge panic around the card is a result of a concept called irrational exuberance. This is a topic that's discussed by Robert Shiller, who is a Nobel laureate economist who's really spent a lot of his time focusing on bubbles in the economy. So let's look at this one bubble and the NASDAQ and kind of describe how different people will respond to this. A traditional economist will say, oh, this is kind of logical, different points, we have different amounts of information about the health of the industry. This is what causes the prices to go up really quickly and then fall really quickly as a result of this changing information. Robert Shiller wasn't convinced by this argument. Basically, he was saying, how is it that it's possible that all of these prices are accurate all the way through? This has to be irrational. This has to be mistaken at some level, because how do you get these wild price spikes when there's nothing really happening at the ground level of what's going on in these companies that causes this bubble to both expand and then collapse? So what he then came up with this idea of irrational exuberance. And what it came really down to is about stories. That a lot of the economy is not just driven by the nuts and bolts of what's in the economy, but it's about telling stories and narratives that are happening in real time. This causes a certain groupthink where people will buy into a narrative all together and say, yes, this is good, this is valuable, we should all get on the same bandwagon. And not only that, this sort of reinforces itself, because when this narrative builds, then the stock prices will go up, and kind of confirming the narrative in and of itself, perpetuating it further. This is the phenomenon of irrational exuberance, where everybody's just getting so excited about this, whatever the market is, and it's building and building and building. But eventually this is going to lead to a collapse. So this is a pretty natural cycle that you see in the economy at various times, where people get overexcited about a given commodity and then causes it to fall down. So let's get back to Nexus of Fate. Let's look at the different factors that have led to this sort of story and narrative that could build irrational exuberance. So even before the PT came around, there was some worry about this model in this card. There were people who were talking about it. It then has success at the Pro Tour. You have content creators and influencers within the community that are then saying, man, this is a really big problem. This is a really weird situation. Then you also have the factor that it has a mystery rarity. It has the strange economy of the MTGO that's responding really quickly at the same time. And all of these factors lead together to build this bubble, build this narrative, build this excitement around a card that then has the opportunity to burst. And I think this is really what's caused the price of this card to wildly outscale what necessarily the supply and demand would necessarily dictate. So, who do we really have to quote-unquote blame for this? Do we blame content creators like Safronov? I'm just picking on Safronov because he's one of the ones who's vocal about this, but there's many of the other ones as well. But do we blame them for creating this narrative? Do we blame the community for buying into this narrative and getting overexcited and buying into this irrational exuberance? Do we blame sellers that are profiting off of this and seeing this irrational exuberance and responding by increasing their prices? Or do we blame hoarders that somehow distort the price within the community by hoarding them all for themselves? I think that all of these are wrong. I think that the group that's really responsible ultimately is Wizards of the Coast. They took a pretty risky design and then combined this with a risky distribution method. And not only that, they had a poor response strategy. They only really told us about this rarity, being the most printed rare, giving a sense of how common it was after the bubble had already been built up. If they really wanted to counter this, they should have come in more quickly. So all of these things have caused this problem where it wasn't priced correctly. But I think that we're going to see a bit of a reversion right now. In fact, I think that you might be seeing this bubble around Nexus of Fate is already collapsing. The prices are falling really quickly. If Turbo Fog doesn't have a good weekend this weekend, the price would probably slide even further. It's really just a matter of time, given the sort of laws of economics will sort of come in. But I just wanted to describe this. This is sort of what might be happening with the card, and I thought that was interesting. And it's a good opportunity to bring up Robert Schiller, somebody who I think is a great economist and just a handsome gentleman. So very happy to have a chance to talk to you about all of that. But that'll do it for today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. This is brought to you by Artifact Academy. Be sure to like, share, and sub in order to support the channel. You can contact me on Twitter or on Discord, and I'll talk to you all again soon.